get started in just a few minutes. So we're very honored to have him in the room with us tonight.
Is this your first stop on your tour?
This is since, I've been here since Wednesday.
In Vancouver? So this is your first stop?
Actually, Tuesday. Yeah, so this is third stop already.
Oh, where were you before this?
Before this, I had 2 private spots with John. Where's John?
Right here.
Oh, hi, John. John, and then another fellow, Rob, out in Port Moody.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it's been a busy month. February, we had Coca Fruit, so lots of people. So many people this month.
Yeah, wow. So are you still doing your apprenticeship then?
Yeah, no.
You're
I
done?
finished that last May. So, let's see. So can I see? How's this?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Hello, hello. Is this working?
No.
Do a check. Is this better? Any louder?
No.
Anything? No good? Yeah, we've got to be pretty loud in here, hey?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Let me grab.
I'll try to do some tech support over here.
No good. So I finished. We'll just run right off your question, okay?
Sure, sounds good.
So I've been in Japan since November 2019 was the first day that I started in Fujikawa Kouka-en. So this is a garden in Osaka. If you guys are familiar with Bjorn Bjorholm, it just so happens to be the place that he also studied at. But there's been quite a few people who have come out of there, and now including myself, but I've been there since November 1st, 2019. And I've technically finished the 5 years apprenticeship, so that would be in 2024 there. And then what we have to do is we have to pay back essentially like a year. In my case, I negotiated to a half year. So I was technically done May 2025. My teacher, we call him Oyakata, he presented me with the certificate. So, to me, maybe it's just a piece of paper. But it's a pretty significant achievement. And what I like to do is say, show me your trees. If you're going to be, say, anyone calling themselves professional, saying they're good at bonsai, you got to be able to back it up, right? So can everyone still hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I can.
Okay. Good. And this is no go?
No, do you have a red light on?
I got a red light. If not, hello.
I did test it at home,
Yeah,
but
okay.
this is what always happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me just digest here. Just ate my fig bars. I've been skipped dinner to make it out here on time.
Jet lag? Not bad?
I've been sleeping like a rock.
Oh, it's all right.
I managed to sleep on the plane, and we're good.
No.
But anyway, we're coming up to our juniper. So one of my specialties actually is, refining. Hi. Sorry. Refining junipers in particular. I really come to love the species. Maybe it's relatively simple in compared to other things. Other species I really like. Hello. We're gonna get me hooked up, right?
Yeah. It's working, as long as I don't walk past the speed.
Okay. Yeah. Other species I really like, Japanese maple. I've been growing lots of those from seed. They're very satisfying. You get lots of changes over time. When you start to get a more developed tree like this, things start changing less and less, and the changes become more subtle. So you have to be also more consistent with the application of your techniques to make sure that the tree doesn't fall out of balance, lose its shape entirely. And something like this, it's time to start maybe honing this in, right? We have a wonderful trunk on this tree. I'm blown away. This is my first stop in Canada since I've been in Japan, and I'm so pleased to see this is what we got. This is exciting stuff. This is on top of it.
You just flew here from Japan?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But I made a stop in America in December, and this is way more fun to me than what they got there.
All right.
And this has been all grown here, 100%. This is crazy.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
That's because you're Canadian, right?
I've been missing out. I got to come home.
That's right.
So, right off the bat, we're looking for, what makes good bonsai, right? We have good, powerful trunk, very, very cool, interesting movement in both of the trunks on this tree. This is perfect. I love junipers with really nice flowing, for lack of a better word, sexy lines. I'm all about finding very elegant lines within a tree, and then doing what I can to say create pads in there that will really emphasize those lines. So these are kind of the main things I'm looking at a juniper, and how the deadwood will interplay with the live veins. In this case, we've got a blank slate. We have no, I'm hearing an echo. Are we okay?
Yeah, I was hearing, I think the mic's working if you want to.
Give it a shot. You can hear me well? Oh, I don't know if I can shout for 2 hours straight, but give it a shot. How's this? Hello?
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
All right. So at least I can tone down a bit.
You don't have to go red in the face.
Sorry? Yeah. Squeeze it out of me. All right. Hello, test. Your test was good. A little more. Okay, can everyone hear me now? Are we still good? I can't tell if I'm going through anything, but
Great.
everyone in the back is good?
It's great.
Good. So, as I was saying, we have a blank slate here. We've got a lot to assess, and maybe really small, simple considerations of how we start bringing in some of these longer branches to help frame up the trunk, and what we can do to create shari on here. And there's a few things that give us, are we good? I think so. Okay. What we can do is, as we're coming up here selecting branches, we can figure out where are these, the shari lines going to be in this tree, based on what branches we do and don't need. So coming down right at the base here, we basically just pop up, take a look, what's our first branch? First one on the left here, this is good, great primary branch to be using. This one over here, slightly higher, so it can make a nice counter branch. It's quite a lot heavier though, so whether or not we decide to go to this finer branch or just use these both together here, we'll assess as we go. But coming up a little further, we have this one coming straight towards us, right? So if I'm looking at the tree here, I've got a branch kind of sticking in my face, and this is really interrupting the flow of the trunks here. After that, I've got these nice back branches here, which can create some good depth. They're nice and fine branches with nice subtle movement, but then I have this really heavy one going in the opposite direction, right? So two branches that I'm not too fond of is this front one sticking right at us here, and then this other one in the back side going in the total opposite direction of the flow. Now it's a tricky thing because we also want some depth in this tree, right? So how do we solve that if this gets removed? We're going to have to really consider how far do the other back branches here, and some of these are pretty weak, but they're just enough. They need to be developed, and we can take this step back and pull these down here to create depth for the back of the tree here. But as far as I'm concerned, like this is excessive. It's very heavy. It really interrupts the flow of the trunks. If we pull this out of here, we'll have these two very nice lines flowing upwards and outwards to the right, and we'll be able to draw out the lines of this tree. So
is there no question as to the front of the tree?
for me, it's going to be right what I'm showing you guys here. If I bring it around the other side, here's the trouble: is the first trunk is the thicker trunk here on the right side, and I want that to be a little more prominent than the second trunk. If I pull around to the back side here, that falls to the back, and now we have this second trunk in front, right? And it starts competing, and it becomes very difficult to balance. I mean, one thing we could consider would be bringing this forward here would be a possibility, but even so, the apex is running backwards no matter how far we tilt this forward. So it's fairly tricky to use this backside. Who knows? When we cut this branch, maybe we open up a new option, and it might be hard to see it until we get to that point. So we're just, from here it seems pretty straightforward. And then how much of a tilt do we want here? We could tilt it a little more and really run maybe kind of a semi-cascading branch here as well is an option. But right now I always lean towards a more balanced design. If I can pull things in towards the center line and just be kind of offset from it, I'll be fairly happy. For example, if I'm coming from the apex, or sorry, the base of the tree here, running a straight line up to the apex, if my tree is moving to the right, or the left in this case, then I want my apex to just be slightly offset from that center line. And if I start tilting things a lot, I'm really pushing for a way more dynamic design, and I always end up tending to lean more towards something a little more subtle, a little more balanced, and a little more calming to look at.
Would you consider tipping it this way?
Would I consider tipping it this way? It's very tough. What can happen here is, you know, maybe this branch becomes a little easier to use, but these branches up here become much harder to use. Yeah, and again, everything's moving to the left here, so if we pull that away, the movement becomes very counter to what's going on here. Does that make sense? Any questions while we're on that?
What about removing the other trunk completely?
Removing the other trunk completely. Now we're getting into territory of how much do you want to make an impression of yourself on this tree versus what it is. My theory is you have to meet the tree kind of where it's at, right? There's times for it, of course, but this is significant. This trunk is, who knows, it's probably older than me. I'm only 31, and this thing is, you know, very significant. You'd have to be very confident in that decision to cut it. And where do we go from there? You know, if this is all gone here, we've just got this one single slender trunk with some long branches that can be quite tricky to use, I'm feeling, right? And same if we only wanted the other trunk here. If this became a gin, maybe if this came all deadwood all the way to the top, what would you do? Maybe you could cascade this and you know, really try to crunch this up. But then you're really trying to force things that don't need to be, right? So you gotta, there's, you know, the tree, you gotta meet it where it's at and work with it a little bit on its terms instead of trying to force things too much, right? And I'm the same way with bending. There's a time for it where you can put, you know, very significant bends into the trunk or branches to try and, you know, get them into the right place. But you gotta do it in a way that makes sense, right? You can't just force it for the sake of forcing it. And if you do go that way, you gotta have a real good plan and be able to follow through on it. Otherwise you're sitting with a tree that, you know, is always kind of halfway that idea that you had, right? So, any other questions before I start considering cutting here? Good? Okay, so like I said, this first branch here right in the center, I'm gonna cut this and you guys are gonna see just how much this opens up and the tree will start feeling like it's breathing, okay? So I'm just gonna go ahead and cut it and leave it kind of long for now. So, and I've been saying this lots today, I said this to John many times today. There's no right or wrong, there's just choices to be made. Yep. And there's tons of choices to be made. Many, many small considerations to be made along the way. But at some point you have to make them. You have to be growing your trees with some intention that these have a direction. Otherwise it's just going to become a bush, right? So we'll keep moving towards these guys now. Like I said, you know, it's really unfortunate. I really like this for the depth. It's very cool. But it moves so counter to the rest of the tree, and it has so much weight to it that I'm going to consider cutting it here. And once we pull this out of here, again, you'll see this tree breathing. And you know what? I don't even want to really leave a gin on here because same problem where you have this now big piece of deadwood that's just moving counter to the tree's movement, right?
So you're saying the flow is to the...
Everything is over to the left.
This way, right? So you're working
Feel that?
way.
Both of these trunks
Yeah.
flowing out here.
Yeah.
If we can keep things moving out here, maybe we, you know, we'll lower some things here. But overall this...
And I guess you'll have to, the lower left branch, it will have to be pulled in quite a bit to get that flow to go to
Exactly.
the right, is right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. We'll have to make space for things, right? And as I come up into the apex of this second trunk too, I'll have to make space so that this first branches of the main trunk don't just collide into here. I want some delineation, some separation between these two trunks, right? So we'll have to make space as we go up. But for now, if you can see this, and I'm just gonna go right in here and cut, and we can make very cool shard in here. But for now, it's just gonna get cut. You'll see now we have
Better.
both of these lines flowing together. There's some harmony between these trunks instead of the one trying to stab the other, right? So that feels a lot better to me.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It's nice the way the two trunks mimic each other as well in
Yeah.
their lines.
Yeah, especially if you have real crazy flow outwards like this. If they flow together, it's going to feel really good. If we have, you know, this is rare. A lot of people might end up making accidentally trees that like have, you know, opposing waves. So one like comes in like this instead, but these really flow nicely together. So we need to emphasize that, right? And I'll come in and I'll draw in some shari on here real quick, and we'll get it started. But yeah, see, we got a little dead rotten branch here. That might help us decide where we start drawing shari here.
So Michael, you took that back branch right off.
Yeah.
I would have, as a bit
Can we see the
little
back?
less experience than you, I probably would have
Sure.
kept that on there, like taking the foliage off and like
Okay, yeah,
sharied it, and then you kind of like,
Yeah. But let's see this. Imagine this is a gin now.
Yeah, you
Now
got
it's
a
just
gin.
going to look like a giant knife coming from here.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
trunk's battling each other,
Yeah.
right? It's not gonna have this nice flow. You're going to be creating this awkward shape in here.
but not even like a little snub of a gin.
I considered it, but it was barely hanging on here. It seemed like somebody actually kind of
You turn it right around so we can see it for a sec?
Yeah. So it was already ripped, all this half part here. I only cut this little line here.
Oh,
It was hardly hanging on. So even if I left that stub, it would, yeah, there's no way I could get all of this if it's rotten here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I barely had to cut it. So that kind of works out nicely. Now we have, you know, these guys here, we can grow these guys into place for some depth in the back here. And instead of, we're not just going to drag this all the way over here, we're just going to create some paths back here. And nothing's going to have to cross through this line. It's nice and open, and we'll work with it.
I think there's another level if you want to pump it up the higher.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's the.
Oh, yeah.
Just a bit low, yeah.
Does this go like this?
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Good point, Colin.
Yeah.
It's like when you hire a 6-foot demonstrator.
Wow, these are nice tables, man. So I'm okay to maybe leave this a bit of a longer gin. I'm not a big fan of like super huge, obnoxious gins. So I'm always looking for what's the most elegant, right? And to me, right now, and maybe I'll have you call. You want to come and maybe scrape this off as a gin if you have something, while I kind of set the shari line in here. Yeah, just use the bar off the branch. So now that this branch has becoming a gin, we're going to have the lifeline of this branch will slowly die back a bit. Junipers will kind of reconnect, and it's not just going to die all the way back down this trunk for this one branch, but we can follow the line of where where the live vein is feeding to this branch, and use this as an opportunity to create an interesting shard that follows the curves of the trunk and meets at this branch. So your eye follows it all the way up and through, you find the dead wood, and then we'll frame things up so that you end up looking at this whole tree. Good?
Yeah, you need the proper tool for that. It's a lot easier. Should have brought mine.
Down.
Just a small pliers here.
No, they need the stripper, what they got for these ones. It's way easier. Yeah.
So stripping off bark, it's not too bad, it's just tar out these big ones. If we had something to scrape it off real quick, it'd be fine. But yeah, typically you can use your pliers and just squeeze it off. And this is pretty thick, man. So these little pliers, so it's good. We can just get it about. It doesn't need to be perfect. You know what? Get a little. It's really easy. These are tiny.
It's not a demo unless somebody draws blood, right?
Exactly, every day. Okay. Where's their doctor? This, good. Good. You know what? That's good for now. I'll draw the shire down here. So for drawing shire lines, whatever you have available, a knife, utility knife is very easy. You can dig this in nice and deep. And we're going to follow the line of the live vein. If you guys can see, when there's lots of bark on here, maybe it's a bit tricky, but you can see the striations of the bark, how it flows all the way down. I think maybe this is something familiar to most people who've been at bonsai for a while with junipers, right? What's really convenient is we already have this old stub here, and that follows the same line, right? So this is just one more of those good coincidences that, you know, sets up. This is kind of where this tree was going, right? This is what I mean with, if you work with the tree where it's at instead of trying to force things, you'll often end up in those situations like this.
So you're just connecting the dots,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. This is connect the dots, follow the curves of these striations here, and I'm just pushing as deep as I can, as deep as the knife will let me go. And I'm only going to do, you know, maybe somewhere about 3/4 of an inch. What is that? We got maybe 2 millimeters. Right, and so once I have dug that line deep enough, I should be able to just dig in here with the knife and peel these bits down, and it should follow all the way down to where I've cut. Right? Everyone kind of get that? And if you have to, these kind of like any old carving tool is also very good. There's a curved one right here. Yeah. Oh, these kind of chiseled ones are good. Maybe a little narrower than this would be good. You can run those through as well. Whatever you have on hand, everything that's sharp can make a line in a tree, right? So don't overthink it. Good, and we want to cut these nice and deep. I'm just going to leave this like this right now, and maybe clean it up a bit later. But you want to cut this all the way through the cambium. You'll see this all white here, and you want to get to one layer below that, so where you start seeing that smooth section of wood, right? Good, so if you guys can see, I know it's a little tricky, all the way deep to that. I'm just going to draw it out quick here, just because we're limited on time for everything I'd like to do today. But then I'm going to keep this going down the trunk. And we have, because of this little stub here, we have these little indentations where it's died back and it's slowly rolled over itself. It's really tough to see here. But you can follow these, and you can cut these no problem. Right along those lines, and follow it out.
You're following the lines in the bark.
Exactly. Yeah, and you can see it when the bark is on here, you can see the striations, right? Even if you pull the bark off, you can generally still see it. So you just follow that. And sometimes you can move a little bit against the grain if you want to put a little more intention into the curve, a little deep, like wider or thinner into the curve. Depends how far you want to push it, but generally you can follow the lines of the trunk, right? And it will come together, so.
Michael, did you say there is a previous deadwood feature that
there's this
healed over?
little stub here. And what's happened because of this stub is probably there was a little line of dieback, and if that dies back, the trunk that's continued to grow is going to, I'm thinking Japanese word right now. It's going to roll over. Perfect. Sorry. I've got my teacher's voice inside of my head. It messes with me sometimes. And oh well, hopefully he stays alive a long time, because I know he'll haunt me when he dies.
You can speak full Japanese?
Good enough. There's good and bad days, right? I'll tell everyone that.
Yeah, feel free to throw Japanese words out at us. We need to learn as well.
Yeah, I mean, you don't need to know maku. It's like, actually, you know, funny enough, it's, you guys know sushi rolls are called like maki. Yeah, so it's the same where it rolls over. Maku, maki, maku.
That's what's wrong.
It
Well,
rolls
I mean,
over.
something wrong.
Yeah. So I'll just pull this just a little bit down to the base, and I don't want to cause any rotting or anything in this trunk, so I'm going to take this down a little bit to the base, and then I'm going to form it to a taper for now. And then I'll taper it off here so that it doesn't just peel all the way to the ground, where, you know, this is probably pretty wet, and I've seen in Vancouver, guys, here, you guys get moss everywhere. Moss grows on everything. It's just so wet. So if the base of this tree is always wet, maybe we cause the kind of the core here to rot out. So we'll try to avoid that. Good. And then, so I'm thinking we have this nice line for this trunk here. If we kind of think about it the same for this next one, if we can just emphasize the lines of the trunk by following here. And it's not going to matter if we're not going to necessarily need a piece of deadwood or anything here to make a decision. What we can do is just taper to a point and you create just the same width here. We do this all the way around. Sorry, not all the way around, but following this same line of this trunk.
Points at the top and the bottom, or just the bottom?
It's just going to be, I'm going to take it about halfway up for now.
But the points?
Yeah, I would taper to the top and the bottom, yeah. Yeah, and the finer you do it, the nicer that's going to look, right? So, again, just following these lines. And I'm not doing it wide. It's just about 2 centimeters maybe. And each year, you're going to let this heal over. It's going to start to roll in a bit. And you're going to be allowing it a year or two to roll over, and the trunk's going to thicken again. And then you can take another maybe centimeter total off, so maybe ½ centimeter off. You can carve this again year after year. And if you do that, you can end up with some really nice, striated, old-looking shiny lines.
So you're letting it heal over,
Yeah.
and then are you cutting into the scar tissue, or are you going
Yeah,
beyond?
exactly.
Right,
The
you're
new
rescarring what you've done.
Rescarring it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What goes into the decision of, like, just doing the shari on the front versus
Right.
sort of spinning it around, like twisting it around the whole branch or the trunk going down?
So if you're going perpendicular to the lifeline where the water's trying to flow, how much do we know we're going to cut off to maybe one of the branches up top, right? If these branches had spiraling in them, I could follow that around the backside. I could artificially add, but then I'm crossing perpendicular, and I could be risking, killing some branches at the top, right? So it's a consideration. You can do it. It can add some kind of like artificial twistiness to it. But I find this looks just as good if this is what you have. Like I said, again, we're leaving the tree where it's at instead of, trying to force it to have this artificial twist. What if we do that and we kill off half the apex of the second trunk? That's going to be hard to deal with, right?
Yeah, I forgot about sort of the straws of life.
Yeah.
You got to follow the vein perpendicular rather than a twisting unless it's twisted. So.
Yeah. So if you wired a bunch of twists in growing this, it's possible to go ahead and do that. But this one, these are very smooth, straightforward. There's no extra twisting or anything. And if we follow these, it's going to also look very pretty, just because we have these nice smooth curves throughout.
On the Shimpaku, how much of a loose bark do we want to remove?
It's preferential. Do you like the tree looking old with the bark?
Yes.
And I see here in Vancouver, you guys, around the rainy season, it seems to get troublesome. A lot of the old bark might start rotting off when it's wet all day, right? So it's a decision to be made where you can decide, do you like the contrast between the red bark and the shiny lines, or do you like the old looking bark where it's all flaky? If that's the case, especially in your guys' climate here, you're going to have to protect the tree a lot more from the rain in the spring if you want to keep this old bark. But otherwise, one thing we can do is you can take some, say, 150 grit sandpaper, and you can sand down to this nice red tone here. And look at this is so wet and soppy right now, it falls off.
It's healthier for the tree to take the bark off here in Vancouver.
Sure, yeah, and maybe it might have some health issue if it's always rainy, right?
Yeah.
So it might be a good consideration to just, polish it up, right? And the way you gotta get this nice.
Especially if you lime
Here.
sulfur the sharis, and then you get that contrast from the
Yeah.
cinnamon color, and you could put oil on it as well.
Yeah, exactly. And here's my note with the lime sulfur. The day you make this shari, there's no need to rush to lime sulfur this. If you're doing that, you're exposing the lime sulfur to also the living tissue edge here, and that can cause a bit of an issue. I've had where this happens, and then maybe the tips get yellow in some areas, and it's a very strong chemical, right? So you just got to be mindful of that. You can let this dry, harden, heal over a bit, and then do lime sulfur a little later.
You go 100%?
I go 100%.
Yes.
Yeah, if you want it nice, bright and white, for sure. Okay.
So would you leave that could you leave it for years? Like how long would you leave a shari like that before you would you gotta put lime sulfur on there?
There's no 100% necessity to put on lime sulfur, right? So you don't have to. There's maybe someone up there who really likes it just looking old and gray and brown, whatever color it decides to turn. But over time, especially here, you're going to get algae and stuff on it. So from time to time, you want to clean it and polish it off. So it's just a consideration, right?
So lime sulfur is aesthetic only, really, for a shari, isn't it? It's not really protecting the shari.
You know what?
It's more
It might
aesthetic.
have some effect of helping things keep from rotting. It's certainly a fungicide too, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to help you keep any of its mushrooms or something from migrating into there, as well as bugs too. That knocks out, as far as I'm aware, almost every bug. So yeah, it's just something to consider, right? I'm gonna break this because it's too long.
That's was it rotting?
So when I make these gin, and usually they're a little more fragile, but it's not gonna go. I'll usually take it, rip, and pull away. This one's very strong, which is good, but still. It may look like a fool, but whatever. So that it looks like a branch broke away, right? Just trying to mimic what would happen. I'll just peel these away, get these nice little striations in here until it feels right. Any of these little nubs and stuff, you can trim them until it feels right. Maybe they have bark on them. And just find where it starts to feel good. And you can use the tools too to carve and shape things how you need. And like I said, I'm not a big fan of huge freaky gin. There's a time and place for it. But yeah, there we go. So something nice, not obnoxious. And the next step is going to be, we're going to be bringing our branches in to try and frame up the trunk now, right? So especially this one on the left side. There's a world without this branch, really. This could come way down, but the tree's not quite there yet. We can develop stuff as it is and work with it, and we'll keep moving forward. Okay, so how much time do we have? Where are we at?
10 minutes.
Good.
Quarter after 7.
Let's do it.
It's 7:18.
So we have tons of these long shoots on here. And this is a good sign, good showing the tree is very strong. It's ready for, pretty much any amount of work you want. Junipers especially, if you have these runners, you're good to do, heavy repotting, lots of different, wiring is really no problem for them at all. But if we start cutting all of these shoots, and then we do a heavy repot, maybe the tree will get pretty weak. If you have these runners and you do a very heavy repot, say going from this kind of nursery, what is it, Anderson flat? I don't know what the soil composition is in here, but maybe you want to start getting it in bonsai soil. And you're coming from a nursery stock or something, make sure you have these runners before you go in and excavate a bunch of the old soil and you're starting to put it into bonsai soil. At this stage, I'm ready to cut these. Are you guys wanting to repot this later this year?
I'd say no.
Okay. If it can be in this another year, then I'm just going to chop these guys out of here.
It was repotted in 2023.
Okay. Yeah, it's good for another year here for sure. Then. You can do a big healthy tree like this. You can do all sorts of work at the same time for sure. But again, there's considerations to be made. How much risk are you willing to take? I always will err on the side of caution, especially your personal trees. You don't need to rush them. It's bonsai, right? So in Japan, where we do things for business, you see crazy things. You see crazy wiring, repotting jobs all at the same time, and that is at the risk of damaging those trees, even short term, right? So really just better to err on the side of caution. We're not going to repot this right after wiring it or anything, but at this time we can at least do just the styling work. So can I have your name, Colin? Yeah. Can you come over with me? Now that I've kind of just got this pad going, can you just go around the tree and all these shoots, just anywhere where it started to lignify here, sure. You can go ahead and cut. So I'm going in, and I'm not just pinching these tips like this. I'm actually going in with these big shoots, finding a point where the branch is well lignified, maybe has some good growth that we can use in the design, and I'm just cutting to that point for now. And maybe even this is still too strong, but we'll kind of assess as I go. But I'll do that for now.
It's perfect cutting material.
Okay.
Exactly. It's ready.
Hey, pass me that one,
So-
Colin. Pass me that one after.
How do we want it? What do you guys want to see? Do you guys want to see this tree all come together, or do you want me to kind of touch on finer points of, say, a pad design or something like this? Whatever you feel.
Everything.
Everything.
I want to see that semi-king guy.
You want to
I want to see that
see a
semi-king guy.
cascade? Okay. Well, let's give it a go then.
King guy.
Let's see. Do we have?
I'm just interested in that branch on the right and what you're going to do with that.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is gonna have to stay for now. It would be nice if it comes down, but I'm also happy it kind of stays up a bit. What we need to consider is how much of this, really our primary direction branch, needs to be countered by this big guy right here, right? If we cut, say, this small one, then we can start to think about bringing this down a lot. But we also want to maybe cover a lot of this length. I'm just rotating here. Cover this length. We don't want to show that off, so we can use this smaller one in here. And maybe we create kind of a little step up here instead of just one massive pad. And that way we can try to separate things out here. It's going to be tricky. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, maybe we can do it with this. And then, is there a hammer at all? I was going to use this to try to punch through the top here. Anything? I can try that. You can try it. Made it. Sorry, bro. Sorry, Darren. Everything's a hammer. Just the broom.
So you're making some holes for some hot out?
Yeah, I'm gonna. Exactly. I'm going to, since we're leaving this in a pot for another year, we're going to use the pot to pull in the branches with some guy wires. Okay? So we got some tube. I always recommend use some kind of tubing, something you can protect the branches with. These little air hoses are wonderful. But when you really start pulling, you can go to something bigger. This is fuel hose. Wow, let's go. I also just use like old garden hose. It's really great because you can snip it, right? And then when you snip a line in it, instead of wrapping the wire, you can just wrap the branch, and then you can just focus on applying the wire instead of messing around with trying to get that on the branch properly, right? So let's see. We need. So I'll use a fairly thick end of wire. Where's my? There we go. Okay. So I'm going to be pulling, this first branch has got to come down. We're going to allow it to cascade a bit to help create some space for this guy here. I'm just going to put the wire right through this little hose. And I'm going to pull this actually here. Sorry. And once I've got a good anchor point on the branch here, and I'm thinking about where the branches start to bifurcate again for this pad is going to be a good spot to pull. If I pull too close, maybe I start pulling down the whole trunk, but I also want to create, imagine things coming off of the trunk at a nice sloping curve instead of this kind of awkward arch, right? So if I pull from out here, maybe we start to create that arch, but if I pull from in here, we're going and pulling this branch, keeping that curve of the branch. Okay, guys? If everyone can see that over here, how we doing? Everyone got that? Does that make sense? And this, I try to keep this across any point of the tree, but with the consideration that the lowest branch of the tree might come down at one of the steepest angles. Those are the oldest branches. That's, if you think about how a tree is in nature, that's where the branch has grown the longest, grown the heaviest, that's where the most snow, everything is weighted down year after year, and as you come up, things start to relax, you come up into the crown of the tree, things are much more relaxed, you have your apex branch. But until that point, things kind of come down. So give this a good tug here. So I'm pulling it down and in towards the trunk. Let's see, good. Is this pot gonna hold up? Yeah, it's good, it's good, it's great. Yeah, no, that feels okay. So this kind of helps pull it down. We've created space for this other stuff here. And this stuff's pretty sparse and weak in here, but I would like to just maybe pull this out here. And we'll see actually, this is quite, again, bothering with the flow of the trunk here. This just comes straight out here instead. So maybe we can even use one of these other branches in here and pull it in and around and keep showing off a little more of this trunk. But I'll pull this one down here now too. Did I drop the wire cutters here yet? I'm going to pull this towards me now, okay? Any other questions while I'm setting this up? Sorry, I'll pull this towards me. Nothing? Darren?
Any question?
What do you mean? You got the poll? You got any other questions while I'm setting this up here? No, not too much to say for the next second.
What's the history of the tree, Darren?
Yeah, it was donated to the club in 2022. Anthony, who's on the Zoom call, him and I repotted it in 2023. And then did some pruning to open up the canopy to try to get some interior budding. Because at least to me at the time, it seemed kind of leggy. And the tree's gained quite a bit of strength in the last few years. Because before that, the soil was completely degraded and was quite pot down. So, and before that, it came from Tax Nursery. So I believe it's about 50 years old. So
50?
50. I think it's one of the junipers he started when he first came to Canada.
Who was that?
Yeah, Tak Yamara. He just came home today. Oh, he did?
Yeah, we were there when he got home today.
Oh, cool.
What kind of soil does it have right now?
It has a conifer mix, so 1 part Akadama, 2 parts pumice.
Nice.
And then I believe it's top dressed with sphagnum moss. So sphagnum moss has been chopped up.
Okay. So I just put some pretty thick wire on to try and pull, and the main goal here is to pull this one down. It's not going to bend, of course, this thicker branch. This has got to be guy wired at this point. But I'm just going to pull this one in towards the center a bit and create some separation. And then also add a little movement, hopefully, if it's gonna go. So when I'm moving branches, I'm always hoping that I can keep things flowing out very nicely from the trunk to the tips of the branches. Just like we want nice angles off the trunk, everything along the way we want to keep those nice soft angles. So I'm not going to try and rip this apart and create a 90-degree branch just to come straight forward. I really want to keep these nice, soft, acute angles here, and then holding this crotch so it doesn't tear away, push away so that I can have this flow away from each other instead of just immediately 90 degrees, 100, whatever degrees. Everything stays nice, acute angles. Everything's going to look much better if we can keep it at that. Okay, so let's see how this looks. Yeah, so I brought this in a bit, and maybe it could come just a hair more, just to kind of cover this guy here, and push things, bring the whole attention back towards the trunk here, right? So just, I'm going to do this pretty quick and dirty because we got a lot of tree here.
But cleaning up the foliage here, very simple rules. First of all, angle of the branches. If they can't be adjusted with wire, if they're so crazy, if it's straight up like this, straight down, if it's very hard to work with, it's going to get removed, right? So just right off the bat here, anything that's pointing really hard straight down, I just go through and I clean those out right away. Same.
Would you do detail wiring at this point, or are you more setting structural?
I would love to be able to just detail wire this too. And maybe if time allows, I'll kind of detail wire one pad. But if we're going to try and do this whole tree in 2 hours, it's going to be a little bit rough.
But if you had the time.
If I had the time, yeah, of course. It would be very nice to get in here and clean it up. And then, so to get this tree to that point, you know, we would want to start thinking about getting into the interior here and cleaning things up. I'm looking for, is there straight lines? Can we directionally prune to better movement within the pad, just like you would with branches? For example, this little bit, end of the pad here, we have 3 coming out the same spot, right? Very energetic. This one in the middle, very, very strong. And if I leave that one, it's a straight line all the way to the end of the pad. But if I cut the central one, now I've put in extra movement within the pad. Like, this is how detailed we can get, right? And we can repeat this all the way to the tips when we're deciding, like, how are we going to keep, you know, nice little movement throughout the branches. It's nice, things dance all the way from, the trunk's got this dancing movement, branches have this dancing movement. Let's keep that going all the way to the tips of the branches.
So that's your standard move, is you take the center one out most of the time? Because I know you don't, when you do
Yeah,
that
yeah.
with pines, you get that spot in the middle, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
hard to pull them back together.
Yeah, so
This is
that's
different, right?
Yeah, that's a consideration. For pines, sometimes you end up with just enough. There's a built-in logic for how they grow, right, because of the decandling, for example. But if you can, if you pull that, when we wire, we can pull these together without making it frog-legged. If we can really nicely make these branches come out together instead of opposing each other and then back out, which can look pretty awkward. You just got to take that opportunity to cut and take that chance, right?
And how big was stub are you leaving in between there?
Not big. This is what,
You're going pretty clean?
like not even a centimeter yet.
Okay.
You don't need to make tiny gin or anything at these points. Just go ahead and cut. Even if the stub is an inch, it's not a big deal. But be more detailed. It doesn't need to be super flush cut. But because something like this, it's just gonna get covered up. It's gonna grow things around it, and it will never really be noticed, right? If you want to get super detailed, go ahead and, especially like deciduous trees, if you're taking out that central shoot, really cut in, get that nice cut in. But with the conifers, they don't mind, so don't worry there. So I'll just try and pop to it here. These guys, we can separate these guys here and create a small top for this here. Other kinds of branches we want to think about getting rid of, anything that's growing backwards towards the trunk is very difficult to use. And see, just small stuff, it's already almost dead, so who needs it? Something like this, it's coming out multiple branches from a single point. You have this little guy growing in the opposite direction. Who needs it? I don't. It's very tough to manage if you leave stuff like that. Now we can assess like what's growing like real strong out here. Once I start coming out to these tips of the pads, I got to start thinking about, averaging out like what I need, what I don't need. I want fine branching. And to cultivate that, at some point we have to start cutting the stuff that's not fine, right? So if I come out, these tips are nice and fine, say about, 15 centimeters away from where things start splitting up. Out here, I have these finer tips here, but suddenly I have this branch here, which is just super strong, even still, all the way through here. This has just kept growing unrestricted. So maybe it's time to cut back to these finer guys in here. Is everyone able to see that? So these nice little branches, these really nice fine branches, these are nice, easy to wire. Something thick like this, you're fighting. You're really fighting if this is on the outside of the tree. So it's good to start considering picking shorter branches as we go on here, okay? And we could keep going. These are long, so do we keep going with it? Can we make this pad from just here? Do we lose some depth in the back? Because I would like to at least spread this out a bit, right? So it's problematic, but yeah, and let's see. Yeah, so this comes out on its own out of here. We can work with it. Like I said, we're going to work with the tree where it's at. So now that I've cut that, and I want to make a little more depth in this section, there's not much here. This will only be here. Maybe this comes down a bit here. We'll get it working here.
So I noticed you're moving from the bottom up.
Yeah.
Is that sort of a Shimpaku thing, or is that a general bonsai practice? Because other people say go from the top down, and other bonsai.
Top down people are another breed. So here's my thoughts on that. If you are starting top down, maybe you're doing maybe some maintenance work of some sort. When we start wiring, this is where we start pulling things down and opening things up. The tree's always going up, right? So with bonsai, we're kind of working against the tree at any point. Just like, your pines, you decandle them, you make them weak, you stress them out. It's counterintuitive to growing a tree, right? With wiring, now we're pulling things down. If I pull this down,
well, I've got all this in the way here. If I pull the apex down, this is all in my way. How do I even work? And how do I know how far down this needs to go if I don't start from the bottom up, right? So yeah, my instinct recommendation is to always start from bottom up. You'll always be able to make space for where everything needs to go as you're working your way up.
Are you going to try and put a little apex in that area, or are you going to go to the bigger trunk and try and pull it so that there is, you know, some space, but you're going to fill that space in a little bit?
Yeah, this little trunk, or sorry, this branch area, it's just a big pad at the end of the day, right? So it's okay that I can utilize something here. It's almost like an apex, but I'm just trying to create three-dimensionality to the pad, right? And the deeper I get here, the more detailed I want to get with it. But, well, we'll see.
So you're keeping the center of that pad taller. Is that what your idea is?
Yeah, and maybe
Yeah.
I'll pull this in a bit.
Mhm.
We'll see how it comes together.
So you're not trying to flatten that pad out,
Yeah,
you're keeping the height a bit.
exactly, yes. So.
What are your thoughts on using aluminum wire versus copper?
I really like copper in comparison. You have twice the holding power for half the material. Aluminum has, it goes on very smoothly and very quickly, that's a fair point. But it's very obvious once it's on the branches too, right? So, yeah, it's preference, if I had to say. For broadleaf deciduous trees, I go aluminum. It's much softer, less likely to, put excessive pressure on the bark. Granted, over time, I've become much lighter with my wiring, so it's just still a preference. But copper has, like I said, twice the strength. You can dig into something like a momiji or something, or a Japanese maple, right? So, yeah. But also with conifers, the copper is that nice earthy color, and it blends in very nice, right? So, don't worry about it. With the pads, I'm always focusing on creating, prioritizing. It's hard to create, the tree creates it for the most part. But prioritizing, bifurcating branches. One goes into two. If you have one going into 3 or 4, you're going to be creating these big gnarls in your branches, and you're going to lose all that nice taper that you should otherwise have. So, yeah. And again, just like I showed you earlier with that central shoot, I'm still just applying that at almost any point that I can. Questions while I just wrap wire here? It will be quite a bit of this. So.
There's no submitted questions, but if anyone wants to jump in with a question, feel free.
Don't worry about the things falling there.
Can you tell us how or why you decided to apprentice in Japan?
Why did I decide to print? Well, look, I discovered bonsai in 2018 actually. Everybody knows your basic IKEA ficus or whatever. But I was on the plane to Japan for my first time, just touring around, right? And they had a documentary about bonsai. And this really opened my eyes to what real bonsai was. It was showing the World Bonsai Convention in 2017. And it showed, obviously some of the best trees around. So here I am, somebody who doesn't really sleep on planes, totally sleep deprived, zoned in on this program. about bonsai, and I just thought it was the coolest thing I had ever seen. So when I landed, I couldn't get it out of my mind. I saw all the garden trees, all the crazy things they had there, through the temples, right? Lots of beautiful landscaping. I got home, I was like, Googling, how do I do bonsai? How do I do bonsai? Next thing I know, my balcony's filled with trees. My rental, I'm drilling holes into the side to put of the railing of my veranda to drop a bunch of trees on there, put plywood to make it wider to hold more. And yeah, it just took over my life in no time.
Join the club.
I would love to join this club because I'm from Edmonton, okay?
What?
And yeah, that's the tundra, right? It's a wasteland, especially for growing trees. So the local club
We'll
there,
take you here.
yeah, I don't know if you guys know anybody from the local club there, but it's very small, maybe like 7 regular active members, including myself at the time. But yeah, we went, collecting in the river valley. I don't even remember. I don't even think that was legal. I didn't even think about it. I was just so stoked to go and do something they invited me to do, right? Anyhow, about a year after, my first winter at Edmonton, half my trees in the garage died. It felt hopeless, right? So, yeah, and I just thought, hey, I want to learn from the source, right? I had no thought of doing this professionally at all. And I just started messaging different gardens, and then especially where I studied, Kouka-en, I liked their style, but they gave me this like glimmer of hope, right? There's no way I was getting a recommendation from the Edmonton club to go to a prestigious bonsai garden in Japan, whatever I thought at the time, right? So it was, maybe it was possible. There was 2 foreign apprentices. I just started shooting off huge paragraphed emails, praying, right? So away I went, and maybe it was one big long work trip. I was going up to Fort McMurray. Everyone, I'm sure, loves to hear about that place. But yeah, I was driving up there. I was in the passenger seat, and I just decided to write another. So I wrote another huge, impassioned email and said, "Look, I've been working my job. I hate it for 5 years. I think I can handle whatever's going on over there in Japan, right?" And I got a response. They said, "If you come, we can do an interview. There's no guarantees, but we'll see if you can work with us." And yeah, I ended up shaking Fujikawa-san's hand, my teacher, right? And yeah, the rest is really history. I went right 3 months before the world locked down. And that wasn't in the plan. My original plan was like, I'll just go to this apprenticeship up at home every once in a while for 2 to 3 weeks and hang out, see my family. It'll be all good. And I had plans to come back here, right? But yeah, the lockdowns happened.
So you were living there?
Yeah, I was living there. Yeah, living there full time. And the living situation for where I'm at's pretty good. We get our own apartment, own space, right? I don't have a sad apprentice story. I'm just trying to have a good time, right? No matter what I'm doing, hopefully make other people around me also have an enjoyable time. But yeah, I was there for the trees, right? And yeah, that's.
Tell everyone the working hours that you were doing those, especially in that first stretch.
Well, it's not bad at all. No, the first half year it was every day besides 2 days a month, right? I just get those 2 days off. Eventually it was just myself and the other foreign apprentice. He somehow made a deal with the boss that we'd get 2 days off or a week off a day off every week. When he got married to his wife, right? So I was like, okay, I'll take it. But yeah, still every day. It's just really 8 to 5, sometimes a little later. But for the most part, 8 to 5, 6 days a week. Yeah, it's not bad. But when you're there and you're in it all the time, there's times you want to get away. The boss can be a little overwhelming at times, but yeah.
Especially if you don't speak Japanese.
Yeah, well that's a whole other thing, right? So,
Where do you reside now?
So I'm still in Osaka and closer than ever to the garden, which is funny, but I have a garden of my own too, so being nice and close is good, because I still go there 6 days a week to water, right? I've kind of met Fujikawa in the middle of, you know, he's got who knows how many dollars worth of trees, right? And he's got to, you know, other people's trees too, not just his own. So keeping them all alive is very important, right? So it's just myself and the other apprentice, he's Japanese. So of course, yeah, knowing Japanese has been pretty important, right? And yeah, we can use you.
So have you learned Japanese?
So yeah, I mean, of course, yeah. It's there's, like I was saying, there's good days and bad days, but as far as, you know, conversational stuff, I'm fluent, and then yeah, I learn new vocabulary and little topical downloads every once in a while, depending on what I'm doing with my life at the point. Right? So now I'm trying to start a business in Japan. And, you know, there's a whole new set of words, phrases, and characters for the writing system that comes into play with that, right? So, yeah, it's a long road, and it's mostly just people saying, huh? Until hopefully you hit the right notes, and get the right, like, pronunciation. Did I hold that O long enough? Yeah, no, there's lots of embarrassing yourself, right? And same with the bonsai, right? Everything I've come to know is from years of also making mistakes and trying to get to the point I'm at. And even for myself, I don't even think I'm quite at the point I want to be at with bonsai. I don't know if that exists even, right? So we'll see. I would like to continue pursuing deeper and deeper and deeper and refining more of not even just trees, but my technique and thought process behind everything as well. Improving on what I think is a pretty solid foundation that I have picked up over the years here too.
I could be mistaken, but I heard that you were like kind of touring people around the garden, like you could spend a day with you at Fujikawa Kouka-en?
Yeah, so how's that going? So how's that going, sorry?
Yeah, how's it going? Like, are you getting a lot of foreigners?
Oh, yeah, I mean, actually, so far, you know, it's funny, we ended up becoming a spot on the map for Osaka where people can find us very easily just searching bonsai, so it's not even bonsai people necessarily. I've been introducing bonsai to lots of people, which has been really fun. But yeah, and I don't get anything for it, but it's fun for me is, and a good change of pace from just wiring every day, is we've opened up the shop for workshops. So for example, if you want to come and spend a day learning, I can do a kind of crash course where, you know, if there's anything in particular you want to learn.
So what are you looking for when you're snipping away there?
Right, okay. Sorry. Back to the tree. Yeah, sorry. Well, advertising, yeah. I'm just, anything hanging down is just too impossible to use, right? Unless I take a whole wire, scoop it all up, and then even if I do that, it's just going to get congested. So anything, stragglers hanging down where it's here, I'm just nipping those all off.
And you're taking all that spindly stuff
and
off
all
too,
this
right?
spindly stuff, yeah. And I would love to be able to do this a lot more detailed. If I could get in here, right, and really be really detailed here, I'll show around the room here. So here's kind of how this is right now. At each of these tips, right, it's lots of this spindly stuff turned in yellow in here. If you guys can all see this well enough. And then I'll come around. Do you guys see that over there? You saw that? Okay. So this is going to be a cleaned up version when I bring it around here. If I could get every tip like this right now, it would be ideal. I mean, we could take an army of us and try to do this and see if we all do it the same. But maybe this is just something that needs to be done afterwards too, right? So I would take it all the way, all these lignified bits where it's starting to turn woody. I'd take away any of those little wispy bits all the way to these tips and just focus on these, and then at the bottoms of these I'll pick off anything going upside down,
So
right?
you're taking off the spindly green stuff,
Yeah.
leaving the woody, that's what you're leaving behind,
Yeah,
is
right.
the woody.
Yeah, even this one is it's now started turning into a branch, so
Yeah.
we'll just take off the spindly stuff off of here.
Yeah.
You guys see all that good over here? How about over here? So yeah, all that stuff that was real spindly, right? This kind of stuff in there. All this is now lignified. It's started to turn hard, woody. You can take anything that's not starting to also be a branch off there, right until the last kind of tips where you actually have some significant growth here. We can use these, right?
They're taking like 50, 60% off each each branch,
Yeah,
right? With
but
all
did
that-
you even notice?
Yeah. Yeah, you don't,
You
right?
can't
Yeah.
tell. It's so superficial.
Mhm.
You probably couldn't even tell that that was taken off there, right? But we want to do that around the whole tree.
And why are you doing that?
So if we don't do that, this is very congested, right?
Mhm.
Trees need sun, water, air.
Mhm.
Okay. So if we leave this all very congested, we're creating shady spots where you can start to get more of this spindly stuff that's growing very light and wispy, just trying to race out towards the sun, right? But if we open this up, then it can grow nice and dense and more controlled, right? With more intention here.
Would you recommend heavy work on this condition?
What do you mean, sorry?
Like, would you do a heavy pruning on this condition of tree?
I would, yeah, this tree, it's growing lots like this,
Yeah.
we're good to heavy prune, yeah. And this is just basic thinning stuff, right? So even if you didn't prune, you want to go through and thin this
Yeah.
out at some time of year. In summer's good, in fall is just as good. But yeah, before it starts growing again, we need to do this, otherwise maybe just uncontrolled, only these tips are going to grow very nice. Everything on the inside here is going to become very wispy. We like these kind of more dense clouds, but if we thin it out, you still have the appearance of density, but you have less risk of, things growing unevenly. Another thing is, bugs. If you have scale or something in here, how the heck do you even know? You can't see it. Lots of places for bad things to hide, lots of moisture collecting in here. You're just promoting fungal growth in there, right? So it's you have to really consider thinning them out just like this across the whole tree. And if you do this, another good design-wise, if you do this across the whole tree, if you end up with a little gap here or there or in the apex, something as you're developing, you've thinned it out enough that it looks very balanced, versus if this is very dense here, very thin here, it's going to look like there's just a big open pocket here versus these little splotches of density, right? So you want to try and do this very evenly across the whole tree. Of course, I'm really rushing here, but we'll try to get through it.
And I guess you're balancing the energy as well throughout the whole tree, right?
Absolutely, yeah, exactly. And look, we're way more dense in the top of the tree. Look, you can't even see through these things whatsoever. But you get lots of these little wispy ones in there again too. So same problem. We get in there, you cut those strong ones, thin out those wispy ones, and take whatever's kind of the average across the whole tree. And then the tree is asking for the same amount of resources to every kind of tip section, and you're helping balance it out that way.
So you do it all, sorry.
Michael?
How long do you keep the wire on for? Or how do you know?
Yeah, until it starts to bite. So always, when you go water your trees or something, you should always be taking a good look at your trees, right? And I mean, anyone who loves bonsai is already spending time with them anyway, so. Every time you're out looking at your trees, take a look. Look at the tips of the branches. If you've wired out to the tips, they thicken up first, typically, right? Also then, anywhere you've bent branches, that will start to swell because you've created little fissures inside of the bent branch and it's trying to heal, so it starts cracking there. and then that'll swell up. Another point is crotches, and typically because when we bend the branch, we're also moving those, right? So you'll end up getting a lot of swelling at the crotches too. And if you have, 2 branches, that's double the growth. So it's always crotches bite very quickly as well. So just be very attentive to that, and have, just always consider what you've got wire on, because it could be 6 months, it could be 6 years. I've seen the very oldest pines in our gardens, just that wire's been on it for longer than I've been there. But if you take like a Japanese maple or another kind of deciduous tree that grows very vigorously through spring and summer, you're going to be biting in weeks, not even 1 week sometimes. Okay, so just be...
You find that the more severe the bend, the faster it cuts in?
Absolutely, yeah. And consider when we're bending, when I bend, I'm applying pressure to the wire, trying to push not into the branch. So maybe the one side is pushing into the branch, right? So maybe that's already pushing more pressure onto it. When I wire, I try to wire lightly enough that there's just barely a gap between, like I try to feather it on if I can, so I can leave the wire on a little longer so the branch can really set, versus if I'm really torquing the wire on the branch. And I'll show you what this looks like right now. This is actually a good branched section. I can kind of show you guys this. Maybe it's out enough. And I'm going to give myself some extra length so I can really show you this in detail. When I go to wire, I'm creating basically a U shape like this. And I'm finding the 2 branches that I want to wrap, and my motion is either together if I brought it over top, or if I come from the bottom, I'm wrapping the opposite way. So I have one hand stays inside, supports the kind of the junction wherever I'm placing, wherever I'm deciding to pair these branches, and I'm keeping this one on the outside. Try bending this versus trying to bend this, right? If you try to bend this little tip, it's so hard, right? But if I have this whole length of wire to create leverage on here, it's very easy. And I can just feather the wire onto the branch or the trunk or whatever I'm wiring, okay? So just real light. And this hand, the outside hand, the torquing hand, no need to go inside and make adjustments. I have this hand, I can move things out of the way, I can guide. This one is always just, maybe I need to move it up and down a bit to try and pull through some branches. But you don't have to think about it, you don't have to release. Coming up the other branch, we go the opposite way, right? Opposite direction maybe, opposite hand, whatever the case. You guys see this okay? Should I come over here again? You guys get over there? You get that? So same thing here. Inside hand supporting here, keeping a good lock between the branches and the wire, and then this one stays on the outside. Maybe I can guide it with my finger, but it's really zero strength into this hand because I have the leverage of the wire, right? And if you get into a weird position, you just switch hands, right? So I'm going to show you this. Yeah, same thing. Just stay on the outside and pull it around. And the inside hand does all the work. The outside one, just lightly applying the wire throughout. Okay? Does that make sense?
So question on the timing of the year. So pre-spring, so is now a good time to work on conifers?
Absolutely, yeah. So anywhere from fall until spring is a great time to work on them. Junipers, pines in particular. Junipers are pretty happy to do a lot of work throughout the year. It's just about doing too much at once, right? So if we were to go do all of this heavy bending all at once and a repot and full thinning out, maybe it's pretty stressful. Like I said, if I want to do a really heavy repot, I'll leave these runners. Just keep it nice and healthy. Junipers get a lot of their strength from the foliage versus something like pines that get a good amount of their strength from the roots. Right.
So you would leave the runners, but you clean all that spindly stuff out?
For sure, yeah.
Okay, so that doesn't count. So it's just this, you're leaving runners, and that's where it's going to keep the strength.
Yeah, I mean, you could, get in here and thin and leave the runners. They're getting their strength from these runners for sure, though.
So it's always, any time of year, it's good to thin out. That stuff is, like I said, it's superficial. It's not doing anything. Half of it's turning yellow already, right? The tree's trying to shed it off. You're just helping it out. You're just preparing it to do it, keeping it from doing it itself.
So you do it every year, like no breaks or anything, right? Just
Absolutely.
You never let it get to this point?
Yeah, pretty much every summer I'll go through and I'll do that thinning out. And then maybe again in fall, I'll just have to do it just a little bit.
So if you do happen to get wire scarring,
Yeah.
how do you treat it?
Depends. For conifers, there's an extent of biting wire that we can tolerate because it might just help set the branches, right? So if we have this little bite in here and that hardens, that's going to help keep that branch set in that position, right? Because it's bitten in, it's hardened, the new tissue has lignified, and it's going to help set it. If it's somewhere in the branches deep, you can't see it, is it so big of a deal? Maybe you'll always know it's there, and you have to deal with that. But you know, most people won't see such a thing, and it just depends on your tolerance for it too. If you're okay with it, it's fine, but if it's something on the trunk or a major branch, it's going to be very, very obvious, right? Yeah, there's no even bites on this. This is incredible.
So there's not much you can do if it's visible?
There's not a whole lot you can do now. No, you can hide it.
Accept it.
Yeah, if you don't need the branch, you can cut it. I wish you could say you could shave it, but you're just creating more scars. I mean, you can turn it into deadwood, especially with the juniper, if that's twisting around and it's swelled. What if you cut that whole strip? Because you've choked it, maybe that live vein is flowing like that too. So you can twist, try and draw a shari through there, and see what the result can be of that is an option as well.
For a branch that's set, let's say you have the last growing season, and you take the wire off, is it okay to bend that further if you needed to?
Sure, okay, one thing I'll say about that. So did everyone hear the question? If you bent a branch in the previous year and you think you need to bend it further, but you've taken the wire off, just keep in mind how much you bent it before. Maybe if you've bent it to an extreme, if you've got now deadwood in there, you have to be considerate of that. But otherwise, after a year, if you've taken off the wire now, maybe it's good. It's case by case, right? You just have to. There's no broad stroke for it with that for sure. Well, we'll see. I'm leaving these little scraggly guys here. Hopefully these can power up. I really don't want this to just be one long branch here. So this one's operating on prayers a bit here. This one here. I'll just try and spread these other guys out to accommodate.
Do you think this tree could use any grafting?
Yeah,
or hard to tell at this point?
Well, any tree could, depending what your tolerance for how things are is, right? If you don't like at all long branches, maybe you could consider grafting in something a little tighter into the inside, right? It depends on what your confidence is to be able to wire things into shape versus, are you somebody who grafts things all the time? I only do a few grafts per year, and typically it's to, restore really long pine branches, for example, or change the foliage type from something rougher to, something a little more agreeable.
So if you're constantly pulling back some of the dead, scraggly stuff from the interior of the branch and focusing all the growth on the tips, how do you balance it getting leggier, but over time it's just going to get leggier?
Sure.
And then, unless I guess you got a plan to really do some good curves and wiring,
right?
But how do you tighten it back up if you keep?
That's a great question. So you have to consider
what's actually going to live, what's going to power up to be something I can cut back to. Of course, maintaining interior growth is an important thing to extend the longevity of the tree. We want something to cut back to anytime. So say this is too long, maybe we start to get little buds in the inside here. Juniper in particular, and I'll keep it to junipers for this, somewhere along the way, those inside branches, you'll have knuckles, you'll have old cuts. Sometimes, for whatever reason, enough energy builds up at these and they'll produce buds, right? So you can use these to cut back to in time if you want. Versus, if I'm picking these real tiny scraggly guys, it's going to be a long time. That's going to really elongate before it powers up, right? But with junipers, we get this crotch growth inside here that you can prioritize. If you want to regrow from the inside out, you can allow these to grow. And actually, coincidentally, these actually take a lot of strength from the outside. If you start getting really big bunches of, let's see, the inside here, all this little guys growing at the crotch of this branch, that actually saps a lot of strength from the outside too. So if you typically will remove these because these will reliably keep recreating themselves throughout the year, keep spawning, right? So it's not really a big issue if you take these guys out, right? And it's just, if you want to regrow, they'll power up on their own, right? All these little crotch growth, that'll power up. If I just left that, the tree's it's gonna get enough strength.
So you get those clusters, it's good to take them all out and keep one that you're thinking of, that's the one you're gonna replace the branch with. You don't leave all of them, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so coming up to this section, like I said, I want to create some separation. I'm nowhere near, and I come from a garden where we really, I get yelled at if it's not clean enough design, right? But just trying to rush this, get at least some little delineations in between things here. I want to really delineate, say, the top of this tree from this tree without connecting them too much, right? And how can I do this when I have just this huge apex growing up into here, and this huge branch that is going to block this secondary trunk apex, right? So this becomes another consideration of how badly do we need this branch? Can this branch come in, right? As I said earlier, there's no right or wrong here, there's just choices to be made. So I could, really connect these, consider them more of one tree. But for me, I want to free up some space here.
You want to see two distinct apexes on this tree?
Yeah.
You don't want to share apex?
I would be very happy if I could get two kind of distinct apexes versus it just becoming one tree and this is a glorified fancy first branch. Yeah. So it's a tricky thing, and I want to actually take a vote on it because we can go. I can make it either way for sure.
Two apexes, two. Off the table.
You got two trunks there, so you want to see the top of the second trunk.
Absolutely.
Take it
off. Take it off.
This guy's really hard for me to deal with. There you go. Yeah, I cut these. It's funny. I go make these decisions. I cut it. There you go. Yeah.
No looking back now.
I always sign a nice sigh of relief.
Did you mean that branch? I was talking about the other one.
We're ruined. Good. So we have much more obvious apex here, but this is, this is quite strong on here. Can I switch it out with these branches here? Because up here we kind of start to maybe lose a bit of taper on this guy. So I'm gonna take a step back actually here. Exactly. Good call, Melvin. So my next plan was exactly cut this and pull it towards this, Jim. But let me take a step back because I haven't even seen the whole picture in a while here, right? So there we go. You know what? We can work with it for now. Let's try pulling the whole thing forward and see what falls into place. I'm thinking this branch here, we can see this now grows in the wrong direction. Right, everybody sees that? Yeah. So always, if this is going back towards the main trunk, It's so hard to use, man. I could do this, but you know, that just, what if I put that curve in there, isn't it? That's just crazy. Chop that, yeah, and then we'll pull this forward.
You don't gin any of those, right?
You can make gin. I don't have enough time to sit here and make gin out of every single branch, right? I would love to. Let's see. If I can take maybe another 3 hours and really nice and slow, we can get a lot more detailed, right? You can thin this out, wire everything beautifully, carve all the gin. We got space to make shari on the back side of the tree, right? We can make some lines there, see what opportunities lay there.
How many sharis would you put on a trunk in one go? How safe is that?
Something like this. This is not going to bother the tree at all.
So would you actually put another one in there that's totally doable?
Yeah, same with on the back side, just following the lines, right? It would be fine. I'm not worried about that. So we'll see how much this.
Oh, there you go.
Now we're working. Has everyone been able to hear me until then?
Yeah.
We'll see how much this ends up pulling the whole trunk forward. But let's see if we can just come from here for that. Well, let's get it on here. Let's see what we need.
What are you going to pull to?
The big gin out front.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. I'll show you what I'm doing.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Preparing to pull this guy out and over. And it's okay. Because this is kind of falling to the back, maybe it's good if this all comes a bit more forward anyway. So as long as I'm tilting this guy too, and if some more comes forward, we've got space to play with. Come to the bottom one. Come to the bottom one. Let's start up top. And if it doesn't want to go nice, we go to the bottom. So Colin, I'll just get you to make a push on this. Actually, unless you want to trade, do you want to be the guy to break the branch or just? Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you got that. So I'm going to push it here. Yeah. And you don't pull, just tighten the wire, right? Yeah. I'll do the pulling. Yeah. Okay. Okay, how's that? Does it stop there? Okay, we've come up quite a bit now too, right? Yeah, so just let go of that. We'll go to the bottom one instead. Yeah, we'll go to the bottom gen instead. So tighten that. Is that tight? Okay, that's fine. Maybe I pull it down straight down to the bottom too after. Just fine. Gotta find the right spot, right? That's fine. Okay. Yeah, so the apex still coming up a bit. So maybe we pull this whole section down as well.
First man's idea.
Any other questions while I'm prepping this part up?
That heavy wire that you just put on.
Yeah.
How long would you leave that on there?
The guy wire?
Yeah.
The guy wires can stay quite a while. Especially if you protect a branch with a piece of hose or something.
Right.
Until the guy wire stops having tension in it, you're good. Right? Until it stops.
Do you find that the guy wire actually gets in the way of your wiring?
Yeah, usually I'll wire, say, like the kind of primary and secondary lines before I bother with the big stuff. Yeah.
Because right now it's pretty rough trying to wire around that, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's going to be annoying, but get this into shape for you guys. Hopefully this pot holds up.
Living on the edge there.
Okay. So, let's see how we're looking, guys. We're just coming into place. You know, maybe this is still
Too much?
pretty tough to use, but it's nice, fine, it's finer branching, right? So we'll see. Let me wire these guys down into place. We'll start spreading other stuff out. We'll see how it all fits together. Coming up to the apexes, you know, there's a lot of adapting and consideration you guys got to make when you're getting up there. But you have to make and find space. Okay, so this is where everything gets super dense. Because, yeah, this is where the tree is the strongest. This is where you end up with the most branches. This is where it gets the scariest, right? You want to see the nice top of the tree. You want to see a nice crown. And you want it to, you know, you want your trees to look good, of course, right? So it's hard to make considerations when you get up there. And I'll start by saying you need less than you think you do. There's always, almost always, too much going on at the top of trees because, yeah, everything will just keep growing up, 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 up.
Do you ever, when you're wiring, pre-bend the branch as you're wiring?
Yeah, that's also a good thing to do if you can. Just depends on the situation. If you know what you get into right when you go for it, as you're wiring, you can be pull down that step, pull down that step, pull down that step. But it's probably a good habit to just wire it and then go. You can have both hands on the branch, right?
Yeah.
Just like this, I can feel everything that's going on, right? There's a small crack there. Maybe it's starting to reach the limit. And you don't have to worry as much, right?
I just find that when the gauge of wire is just not going to hold, right? And you do that pre-bend as you wire, it'll hold better.
Yeah. I also find if you have to like rotate branches too, that helps if maybe you like rotate it the way you want and then wrap around there. That's kind of like, we say like, you're preloading the branch. So the stress is on the branch at that point instead of the wire. So you do have to be a bit careful there, that you're not applying like too much torque to the branch versus when we wire first, now I can put the pressure on the wire, right?
Right, okay.
Yeah, so I say this all the time. I don't even know if I've said it today to you guys. Wire's only purpose is not to bend branches. The reason we wire branches is to protect them for the bend as well, right? Same reason you would maybe apply something like, maybe a lot of you have seen people apply raffia to branches to protect it, right? But you wire with consideration to how you're going to bend the branch, right? If I'm bending and pushing a branch, I want the wire to be on the outside of that bend to keep it from blowing out the side of that branch, right? We've wired with the consideration of protecting the branch from the work we're going to do to it, right? So there's many considerations, and anyone who spends a day with me learning to wire, I will drill them on a lot, especially like how you would approach a set of the branch junctions between your next bifurcation, how you can protect that crotch, because those are very weak portions of the branch that can rip away very easily, right? So you're like, hey, what do we got? And these crotches, look at it, with zero effort, it just rips away, right? So instead of doing that and leaving damage all over your tree, you know, if you can learn how to wire so that you can secure these first. And like I said earlier, I want to keep these nice acute angles. I can use the wire to protect these so that I flow things away instead of ripping apart and coming back together. So very, very important to don't just treat wire like it's a tool for bending. It's we wire to protect from the work that we're doing.
I'll give you the wire. You can get at it.
What's that? Let me hear it.
I'll give him the wire and he can get at it.
All right, come give your hand at it. Yeah.
Is there any consideration to the twisting of the branches as you're considering this tree, or is it the fact that maybe there isn't a lot of twisting in general, that it's not worth you're sort of doing something different with the branches?
Sure. Like I said, if you're twisting branches, like I said earlier, if you rotate, you pre-rotate this before you wire, you're putting extra stress on the branch, right? Of course, you can add twists. If you're wiring and you go clockwise, you can rotate and add a little twist to the branch, but do I need to rotate this pad? I need to rotate it offset a bit, and maybe I do it a little subconsciously at this point where maybe this was tilted, and when I wired, it's come out, so this is a little more flat, right? Something kind of upright like this instead of like this. We can at least consider how we twist our pads into position. But adding unnecessary twists into a branch is, when and where is that necessary? That's going to be up to you, right? It's not something I, will just do for the sake of doing. And so for this case in the back here, I've got this kind of upright branch. Even if I just bend this, it's going to be like this. So maybe I'll try to twist this whole branch it's coming out of just a bit to straighten that out, right? And then that can come out a little less awkwardly once I wire it as well. But we'll see how it plays out, right? Yeah. And then, again, coming on the back side here, maybe I just need to raise this up a bit. So I might just wire this rotated a bit like that. But it's case by case every time, so.
Are you kind of bringing them down in a little dip and then lifting them back up?
Like I said, I try to avoid this kind of motion. If I can come off the trunk or the branch coming down and out like this, a smooth curve, that's going to make it very easy to make this nice round pad shape. If I'm like this, how do I make this round pad shape over top of here? I have to crush branches in all the time, find funky angles. But if everything flows out like this, everything can grow out just like that.
What types of trees are the ones you're drawn to the most?
Sure.
In terms of like working on favorites?
Yeah. Lately, I've been into like Bunjin style, literati style. A nice, thin, light. It becomes a very mental thing of how you balance the weight of everything. A tree like this, a bigger tree, lots of volume tree, there's a little more leeway with, how much density is okay in this section, how big can this pad can be. If there's lots of volume already, there's a little more leeway, right? But if you have a tall, slender tree where even the one little extra heavy pad, the weight can make the whole thing feel off balance. That's very fun to play around with. And you can sit and think about it for way too long, really, sometimes. But yeah, that's been very fun for me recently.
Shimpakus?
Yeah, junipers. We have a big, now double trunk Japanese maple that is kind of a Bunjin style too, that we're working on. That's a pretty young tree, and that, it's just, you have so many considerations, it just becomes very fun. But yeah, any species, pines are very fun for that too. We get lots of like literati style red pines, and I really like wiring those ones too. What's going on here?
Are there any trends in Japan right now that you know? If there is, if there are.
Sell everything, no. It's all over the place, right? Everyone, a lot of people doing their own things. People starting to experiment, right? And, you know, I can't say trends. It's become kind of a cool guy thing to do in Japan for bonsai. So a lot of young guys getting into it, which has been good. And young people wanting to learn bonsai again. But the vibe of it is maybe that, you know, they might not stick around because bonsai doesn't maybe lend itself to being a cool guy too much, right? And even especially in Japan, it's always been an old man hobby ultimately. But your life, like if you start doing bonsai, now you're not going out as much, right? You're saying no to those vacations a little more if, you know, your neighbor or your family member also isn't able to water for you that week. So there's considerations for your life at that point, right? Style trends. Let's see. We have old guys like Kobayashi starting to do really funky designs. You can disagree with it all day long, but you know, people are starting to try their own things, and I think it's starting to leave where it was, where you know, and it hit a point for a while where we just make big bulky trees like this, right? Big, heavy, voluminous trees with crazy twisted trunks. Now we're starting to get into, you know, territory of playing around a little more, I think.
Like bonky?
Sorry?
Like bonky? Bonky?
Bonky.
Is that getting a new trend now in Japan?
What is bonky? Like flower?
Offset, like kind of style bonsai with more planting on the bottom.
Oh, yeah, no, I've not seen too much of that necessarily.
Michael, any comments on the root system on the Navari and all the roots and whatnot?
On this tree?
On this tree, or
Sure.
generally, what would you maybe want to do with this, or would you leave it?
So, yeah, this, being a juniper, it's quite difficult to cultivate a wide single layer of Navari because of the way the roots run, where we have this live vein just like to the branches. Maybe these single roots feed up a line up here, right? So like this big root here, right, maybe feeds a portion of this, right? So this happens with growing junipers as you get more gnarly exposed roots like this, and you know what? It's fine. It's part of a characteristic. As it starts to get older and it starts to raise up out of the soil. You know, what would I do about it? I will first of all say I'm not trying to necessarily cultivate a sprawling Nibari for a juniper. I'll take a nice wide base if it's a big powerful tree. But again, I'm looking for the most elegant lines, and if the base complements that, then there's no issue for me. On this, you know, we have these roots that curve and come into the trunk here. These ones kind of bulge out here, make the base look a little wider. It adds a little more power. It's quite fine. There's some stuff on the back here, but a lot of this is dead, right? This guy's probably dead too. Yeah, I think this root here is dead. You know, there's no rush to do anything about it. As far as I can tell, you know, there's some scars.
Visually adds weight.
Yeah, visually adds weight. There's some dead guys, that's fine. But yeah, otherwise, mainly you would probably dig this up and see you have a few powerful roots that lead somewhere where they've been probably chopped at some point and have now finer roots going off of them. I can't say for certain, that's just my prediction. So.
recommendations for people wanting to import trees from Japan to Canada?
Sure. Well, that's a long topic. If anyone wants to talk deeper with me about that one-on-one, please make sure we trade info before the end of the night. As for myself, I am helping people find trees in Japan if they do want to import. There's a caveat to that where I'm working with Canada Bonsai, since he's kind of one of the people who I know can import them in reliably. And there is a restriction on species, okay? So there's some odd deciduous species that we can bring in that have no size limit. But if you want seedlings of some sort, it's also possible to get those up to like 1 centimeter for some different maples, and maybe hornbeams or something like that. But yeah, we have to, if you guys want to talk about that, that's a whole rabbit hole. So
They block the import of more mature trees?
like I said, it's species dependent, right? So if you wanted to get, say, a Stewardia, we have no size restriction on that. I'm not entirely sure the exact reason why there's such weird size restrictions for certain species, but yeah, that's the case anyhow.
Can you talk a little bit about the, when you were looking at this tree and your design concept about like how wide would you want the tree to be, the branches in relation to the size of the trunk and the height?
Right. First of all, like I've been saying, I'm meeting the tree with where it's at. If we could compact this all a little more, that's great. But you have to step back and kind of look at it holistically a little bit, right? Wow, this is looking crazy. I need to close up that apex right away. But the thing is, you have, already these huge long branches, and there's only so much you can do with these, right? At this point, somebody suggested grafting earlier. If you wanted to, you could. I think ideally, given the thickness of the trunk, if we could compact each of these into here, instead of such a big one single powerful branch, if we had smaller pads layered throughout here, so maybe this is on the inside, this is on the outside, and we staggered these in and out instead of making this kind of dome, I would feel very good about that, yeah. But yeah, it's very, very tricky to get it to that point, so.
So what do you feel about that apex where you had your hand on
this
there?
is, I'm having my contentions here because part of me wants to cut it.
Yep.
Part of me thinks it's good to at least move one branch into here for the apex. But we also, if I do this, I'm creating some funky lines here. I want things to flow together.
Like right now, it seems like it's still growing in the opposite direction.
Yeah,
right?
it feels that way, right?
Right, like what you wrote.
Maybe I can pull it more. I don't know if it's going to go.
I need another anchor point.
Yeah. No, it's not
I guess
gonna
the
go.
easiest thing is always to cut it, right?
Yeah, well, that's
not always the best.
not always the best, and it's a consideration. Does this open up too much? Right?
Definitely separates the two trunks.
Right, yeah, exactly. So I could consider pushing this even further from here and then pushing that to the back side. And away we go. Let's try that.
Nah.
Can you speak about like what kind of pot you might want to or envision for something like this?
Yeah, something like this would probably be good. In a nice, you know what? I'll say this first of all. Not many junipers will look good in a very heavy rectangle with hard edges. If you had to go that direction, I would say if you did a rectangle with rounded corners or cut corners, and then maybe something light like cut or cloud feet, and some curves to it, that's really going to emphasize or accentuate, again, what we have on juniper, which is these nice curves, right? Versus if you have a big old pine, then you have a much more masculine tree, and you can go with those big, heavy rectangles. Otherwise, yeah, ovals are great, is one option, right?
That lotus shape,
Sorry?
that lotus shape.
Yeah, the lotus shape could work good. I think if you had a
It's
bit of
very
a
hard
taller
to get
tree.
big pots here,
Yeah, oh, I
Tell me
know.
about it.
I know.
but you can get those big Chinese pots, and you have 40 pounds per pot.
Right, yeah. Yeah, so this oval works just great. I think it's a little long, maybe a bit heavy, but I think it's serviceable. It's good. Sorry. Okay. So, still got lots of tension on these guys, but I just pulled this forward a bit more. And then I'm going to cop this up. And now I don't feel like I need this. This is getting hairy. I get very picky at these points, to be honest. Oh, sorry. I really like to take my time a lot more. And yeah, so now we can see everything's going to keep flowing outwards, and that feels better. I'm more confident to, cut this top here. One thing I've really learned, spending time around very talented people, some wizards even, is the masters don't necessarily know exactly what to do immediately every time. They have systems where they can break things down to make it more simpler, to make it more digestible, to move forward on a tree, right? So, sorry?
It needed
That cut? Yeah, it's too much, right? And we'll see what happens here.
So how much of this design did you envision when you first looked at it?
Yeah.
Did you envision this?
Well, here's the thing, is I kind of have a rough vision of the tree in my head when I look at it whole, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can see like, okay, branch here, and it's got to probably be something like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I need to close it in, and I need to open up the apex, okay? So I have a rough idea going into it, but until I get in and I see the details, I don't know what's there. There's plenty of surprises, right?
Yeah.
I get up here, I'm like, oh, okay, well it turns out we didn't need that. So you take it step by step. Like I said, if you work from the bottom, you can get to these points and deal with it, right? But if you just rush into it blindly.
So that's why you're not pruning the whole tree at once first,
Right.
and then wiring.
Sometimes.
You do? Because you basically were pruning and wiring at the same time.
Yeah.
And working your way up.
Yeah, exactly. So
So-
I can get in here and generally cut what I think I don't need, right? But sometimes once I start wiring, I realize I need less. Right? So even just for sake of showing you guys, if I do it both at once, I can encounter it as I'm going and just be like, hey, this is exactly why I would have cut this. If I just go and cut this, how can I explain to you guys, like I get to this situation, how can I explain, if I would have wrapped the wire like this, I would have reached this point and it would have been super hard, right? Or if I reach this kind of triple branch, it's super hard to pull that together to reshape that. This way I can encounter these with you guys, right? And it's a surprise to me, but I can show you how I would deal with it, right? Because that's all it is if you can get things to a certain point and break it down into chunks that make it a little more digestible for you, you're going to be able to make your life easier. Because it's not easy. Getting this tree to a complete stage it's not a single process either, right? So there will be things before I'm done here that I'm going to say, yeah, this needs to grow more, or that needs to grow more. In this case, for me, I would love to go through, thin this out, and clean everything very nicely and get it to a bit of a better point too. But it's just time, right?
So you are being rushed because of the time limitation that we have. So if you had your drawers and the time, how long would you spend actually working on a tree like this?
Like I said, if I had another 3 hours, and plus if it's just sit down focused work, it's not that bad, right?
That one.
But yeah,
Excellent.
it could take up to a day, right?
Yeah.
Right. I'd say 5-6+ hours. Right, if I wanted to really detail wire this, get it really pretty, you got to thin it out. It's thinning this out properly as one person. That might take an hour and a half or two almost, right? But if I was doing this myself too, I can also go through here right away and cut some of these branches out that I know are too thick, too difficult for me to use, and at least save myself some more time with that, right? Right, so it's very easy. If you just have your kind of mental system like, I know how I wire, and I would say, well, this branch is just, this is insane. Like, how can I use something that's already at the top of the tree, very thick? How can I use that, right? So I would immediately come to the conclusion that something like that needs to be cut, right? So, yeah, but if I just go through and cut without showing you guys, what do you guys want, right?
Well, we need time to see every scenario, right? We haven't got that time right now.
Well, exactly, yeah. So here I can start to rush this out if we want.
So as a suggestion, because you're running out of time and you're being rushed because of that.
Yeah.
How about if you talk a little bit more about your design approach to the rest of the tree?
Sure.
Stay in here for another
They might come back next year to finish it.
There we go.
So we should take the tree down.
Yeah, so I mean, there's, like I've said, there's no single answer, right? There's no right or wrong, there's just choices to be made, and at some point you have to make them, if you're going to progress the tree forward. So how do we consider these things? Like I said from the start, I'm focusing on the lines of the tree. What brings out the lines the best? How can I position these paths to accentuate these curves, right? How can I, hide these things that flow against the curves, right? For example, these branches coming out here, these really flow against the curve of the trunk, right? Flow against that movement out to the right side. So it's excuse me, if I leave that showing that, your eye's gonna follow out to the wrong place maybe, right? I want you to follow from the base and all the way up to the top of the apex and keeping everything in flow, right? So again, we saw that earlier before I cut this. It's flowing against the flow, right? You guys can feel it as soon as I cut it. It feels better that everything's flowing up and out here, right? So we just got to keep going with that and feeling the movement of the tree, following those lines, and pulling out those lines to really show off what's interesting about the tree. You cannot, it's impossible to sum it up in one word, right? So now we come up to, this apex. This is crazy, right? It's tough, but it's very thick. It's kind of lacking taper, so maybe as I come up here, we got to pull these guys down to maybe hide some more of this, right? Maybe this guy comes a little more to the front. I wish it was as easy as chopping the whole thing out, but I don't think that's the solution either, right? Again, if everything's going up and out, how can we, work with this without totally hacking the tree back, right? So wires are going to be kind of one of the answers here, right? And just pulling in to fill in now what's left of these space gaps here. And like I said, for the apex, I need to make, and I need to find first of all, and then I need to make space. I need it to open up. I need to bring this all kind of above here. So if I have, like I said earlier, maybe the kind of centering point is right about here on the nabari. If everything's to the right side of this, if I pull this to the if I pull this to the right, it's all wrong. If I keep this going to the left, and everything keeps flowing, following this line, right? The trunk's moving in this direction. If the apex ends up right here, we're happy. So what do we already have here? This branch here is kind of our main line, right? And there's a nice curve if we follow this. There's still nice curves here, right? This is very heavy.
Yeah.
This is tough to deal with.
Yeah, very tough.
Could this be a gin and we, grow something back around here?
Yep.
It's tough to consider. Or can we yard this down enough to open up space to give this guy some space so it's not overpowered, right?
It's just a bit thick. It's actually almost thicker than the branch you're going to use as an apex, right?
And then me coming from somewhere where we are really good at crushing, compacting things, I've started taking a liking to letting the apex grow, okay? If the tree wants to be a bit bigger, sometimes it's better than really just grinding it into a pulp, trying to compact, and then your leader's growing sideways or upside down.
Spaghetti, right?
Things should grow up and out. The tree needs to breathe. How am I gonna pull this one down? It's not easy. I will do what I can to support it. First of all, I'm gonna move out of the way of these other easier branches, say this back branch, say maybe this one just needs to come down just a little bit, but I still want some space in between here, and just to, emphasize that this is the apex, right? These guys can come down a bit, and maybe, maybe part of the answer is just cutting out anything from this that's trying to be an apex and focus on these being branches for now. And then, once these are out, these guys on the apex branch can grow into that place, right? So I'll move these guys out of the way and reassess step by step, and you guys will see it in action, okay? Because, you gotta see it happen yourself to kind of believe and understand, and you're going to encounter these situations on your own tree one day.
See it to believe it.
And Michael, am I crazy or am I too far back here?
Yes.
But I'd be tempted, in my inexperience, to totally eliminate those bottom right.
These two? Yeah.
Because of the flow that you have.
Yeah.
And then almost sort of bunging sort of style, the top tree, and bring that middle branch down further to fill the void, but to leave that intensely empty would have been something I would have thought about.
Absolutely, I will give you that. It's something I considered at the beginning. Okay. I didn't come here to entirely hack back your guys' tree. If you guys wanted to give it a shot, we can go for it. Like I said this at the very beginning, that there's a future for this tree where this branch, this whole section doesn't exist, right? But I said it would be nice if something on the side here could develop a little more first. And then you have that guarantee, right? If we chop this now, who knows, maybe something here is fine. Maybe it gets weaker because we created this big chop that's on the same side, right? Like I said, there's a future for this tree where this doesn't exist. If you guys wanted to do it today, I'd go to town on it.
Well, there is a danger of doing that now that you've created that shari in really close to that as well, because it will die back right underneath that giant branch.
Sure,
right?
Yeah.
So
you can always do that anytime.
There's no rush. This can become a gin tomorrow, today. It's that's awesome, man. Yeah, for me, I would try to create the most slender, elegant tree possible. But so that's a very good observation, and I agree with you 100%. Right now, where this pad is at, this is too small of a counterweight, right? So if we cut this, maybe we have to think about cutting this, or reducing this, right? At least this is crazy, but this is a really good branch to lose this. You lose a lot with the tree, right? So it's a consideration, right?
In your line of work, are you always having to make these fast decisions, or do you get the luxury of taking weeks and months to look at a tree before you decide on it?
Sometimes the tree will be on the bench for months at a time before I get to touch it, right? Sometimes he goes out somewhere, comes back, and it's dark outside, and then the next morning he says, "Make it look cool." And that's my only instruction will be, make it look cool. Make it look cool.
How long did it get to get to that point where he trusted you to do that?
Kind of almost the third year. So here, I'll show you guys what I'm doing here now. So I'm coming in, I want to bend this down to be a back branch. But like I said, we have guys growing straight up who are really still competing to be the apex. I'm okay, maybe leave a few of these, wire into position for volume for this as it comes down. But I had one that was coming way up here and competing with the apex, okay? So hold this down, Yeah, well, yeah, we'll see. Maybe only the smallest flexible one can even come down into this. Yeah. How are we doing for time, guys? Be thrilled to clean this up a little bit at the end before we call it good.
About 10 minutes.
Really?
Technically.
Darren.
Let's roll.
Nobody kicks us out.
Nobody kicks us out. Okay. Well,
Shall we take a half time?
yeah.
Half a minute.
As long as everybody helps put away the chairs.
The tree lover in me can't go without projecting. I was gonna do it, but
Yeah.
do it.
Did the responsible thing, right?
Yeah, it's the right thing to do.
And make sure you follow us on Facebook, okay, Michael?
Oh, for sure.
Give us a like.
Likewise.
For sure.
You have a website?
Yeah, I just bonsaiharmony.ca. That's I just floated out there.
You ever use 2 wires on one branch, or is always just the bigger gauge wire?
I would keep it simple and try to use a thicker gauge. Aluminum is pretty tough because you need, like I said, with copper you have about double the strength for half the size. Aluminum, you need like half the branch thickness to really even be able to work any one species. So, yeah, if the aluminum's all I got and I gotta use 2 to make it happen, it will get done that way. But a lot of the time, instead of doing that, I'll just using guide wires, pulling things down with those instead. If you're not showing the tree, why waste more material? Just a little guide work and pull things right down where you need them to be. Away you go. Who said you want the power?
Do you ever draw or sketch your design ideas?
Not before I necessarily work a tree. When I consult with people, they'll send me their trees and I'll tell them, take a picture of it and I'll draw you what kind of it could be in, 5-10 years, or even after you wire it, what it could be if you are very conscientious about it. And then there's been people who I do that for, and then I get to go and execute the idea on the tree. So it's not necessarily before I start working. So, like I said, I've developed a system where we can start from the bottom up, thin it out, kind of start to figure out how my wiring style is, know what I do and don't need, and deal with things as I encounter them. So.
Are they still pitching junipers?
Still what's that?
Pitching?
Oh yeah, yeah, just in the growing season, right? If you can get terminal shoots like this, they'll sometimes just I'm more of a fan of letting them run a bit like that, and then you just cut back to a lignified portion in here, right? And then that'll help you create the roundness for the pads, right? That's going to give it more strength overall, and that way you're not just pinching all the time. But yeah, that's a whole other topic of the junipers, right? Because it depends where you're at too. In Japan, where the climate is really ideal for the Chinensis junipers, the native junipers, they'll tolerate it. But I've heard a lot of places maybe they don't. I don't know if it's lack of sunshine or what. And it gets to, we'll have months of 36 degrees in Japan, so there's too much sun for them. They got lots of power. So if you can, yeah, let things run a little bit outside of the pad. If you want things to, fill in, right? And then yeah, just cut in to where it started to lignify. I don't know if you can see all the little woody area in there, right? Just cut a little deeper into the pad and cut out that shoot, and you're left with the nice roundness of these guys, right? And then of course thin out those little stragglers and make it happen. So
How many specimens do you have in your garden?
Never taken an official count, but big ones, maybe somewhere 150 plus, and then if you include all the small trees, you're probably looking at, 500-ish total. Myself and one other apprentice, in the heat of the summer, it can take you about 45 minutes to have the whole garden watered. And then we do that twice a day. So if you end up alone per day, you're watering for an hour and a half, twice a day, in plus 36. It's pretty fun. It's good. You get in the zone and you just get relaxed. It's the way you go. Sweating. I'm the swamp man of Japan. I come from Kouka-en, just sweating every summer. I gotta go grocery shop and everything before I go home. And I'm sure they call me the swamp man.
Canadian.
Yeah. It's gotta be strange seeing this.
From Edmonton, maybe.
White guy dripping through his shirt, looking almost homeless because he's in dirty clothes from doing bonsai and sweating, stinky. In the summer I got my Crocs on. Oh my goodness, that's that mess. Okay, so really cutting it close here, guys, but like I said, this has got to come down to be more branch-like, right? And everything that's competing with the apex, I've got to cut these to create some space, maybe for this to come up a little bit, right? You guys understand that? Now you're seeing this happen, and I'm not just rushing to cut. I'm not here to impress you guys. I'm here to teach you, right? If something I do impresses you along the way, sure, whatever. But I want you guys to learn. And, I learned in silence for most of the time, and just yes or no.
That's really like...
It's very rare for me to get a verbal lesson of anything at all there, so I hope what I can impart in such a short time is valuable to you guys.
Sure is.
I know
That's a beautiful submission, guy.
So do you,
has like a
your apprenticing, are you
like
mostly learning from your more senior apprentices? Or?
And that's the struggle for me, is we had Naoki Mayoka there part-time when I started. And learning from his work was very good, but mostly what I learned from is my teacher's sense, right? I have to try and match the vision that's in his head for the tree, right? The apprentice is the brush, is the tool, it is the carving knife, whatever. Whereas, so I'll just get very little details, and if he says he likes it or not, I'll know if it's decent. And then I also have to have my own discerning eye with it too, right? So.
That I like. Natural.
Yeah, it's most of the time it's not my own tree, right? You have to be self-aware. You have to really, compare yourself against yourself, against the work of others if you want to, improve, create better trees, and just, have a light heart about it first and foremost, right? It's not, at the end of the day, you're playing with trees, right? It doesn't need to be super so serious, but it just depends what you like too, and what capacity you want to do it at. If you want a very casual relationship with bonsai, your trees will be cute little humble pieces of material. But if you really like diving deeper into really cultivating a fine tree, it becomes a bit of a different story, right?
Another fold down.
Go even lower, yeah. Yeah, we got to go. Yeah, 2 hands. Okay.
You want a hand?
Yeah. If you can just push down on the bench here, just real subtle. I'll pull this back. Okay, good. Good. Yeah. Good.
So you're going for the big apex look. You're not going for a really tight apex, is that what your idea is?
Yeah, I
on
mean,
that?
we can grow this out a little more. What's this
Yeah.
tree got? Maybe, almost 80 centimeters.
Yeah.
If this ended up being a little taller, it's fine.
Mhm.
And you could grow this a little more prominent. But at this point, like, if we can create a nice dome here, this feels pretty good overall, right?
It does, yeah.
Again, this is pretty crazy here. If we chopped this, I would say we're going for a way more narrow apex.
Right, okay.
If we chop this, I would chop out this whole top side here.
Yeah.
And I would just try to make the rest of the tree from the
Super
scrawniest branches I can find.
Yep.
It will look juvenile.
I mean, it's an iteration, it's like down the line, right?
Yeah.
For sure.
It will look juvenile if they get this one.
Careful consideration. And I could come here, hack the whole thing in one go, see if it survives.
Nature is like this.
Um,
Nature is like this.
Yeah, lots of demos are done like that, eh? It's hit and run kind of thing, right? It's all performance art.
I've heard,
I like it, this.
yeah, the whole time the tree died. The whole tree died. Now you hear this all the time. I'm familiar with trees. I like trees. I like bonsai.
Yeah.
Very
I
natural.
love them. I dedicate my life to this stuff. So,
Sure.
just take it tree by tree. Like I said, I'm not here to be a showman. I'm here to teach you guys whatever is valuable to you. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
They will cut that off.
Would you ever consider
guy
like
didn't.
taking the bottom half of that thick lower branch off just to sort of reduce the weight?
Which one, the right? The
Yeah,
right side here?
the ones you're thinking about removing.
This
entirely,
one?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, we almost started that with this chop here, right? We could do one more. If you wanted to do it bit by bit. A juniper, I'm not worried, really big. If you take off a branch, just take off a branch. Yeah, right now, there's no counter, right? So you really have to commit. Yeah, in one go, trying to turn this into a literati bungeon tree here. This is that'd be a lot of foliage to these guys. You're risking the whole tree.
Yeah, you set things back.
The work
It
means
takes
nothing.
longer.
The work means nothing if it dies. So if we can at least push it in a direction that gives it more options for the future, that's an even better place to be, right? Especially, your guys' own personal trees. Like, you're not going to go home and I'm sure a lot of you have had lots of time and consideration with your trees. You're not going to go home and just, what if I came here and hack this crap, and then you guys go hack your own trees to crap? And
I probably will go home and do that.
We do that anyway.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna want to go home and do
You
that.
are very good sensei, you didn't cut that off. Very good sensei.
I think the tendency for most people is to cut rather than wire. And I see with you guys, you're always thinking wiring, right? You're thinking, well, you know what, I can wire that into a position. Whereas the instinct is to remove it because not everybody wires. Like a lot of people don't wire.
Yes, that's a good point.
Especially with one hand.
My lens of what is possible is certainly different from yours, right? So exactly another point of, if I made you think it was possible to chop this entire tree and turn it into a literati tree. Wow, what the heck, Mike? It's,
YouTube.
YouTube, yeah. Exactly.
It's not a good way to handle things, right?
do that much work on a tree of that size and bigger, would you have to wait a whole year to what?
It depends, you know, I've done insane amounts of work to trees where I'm like, I can't believe that survived. It's case by case. It depends on what the quality of your care is for the tree, how developed the root system is. A tree with a more developed root system like this, if you guys say this has been in bonsai soil quite a long time, maybe, you know, this has been purpose built for bonsai, so maybe this can handle a lot more, right? The root system would sustain it through quite a lot of trouble, right? But it's case by case. It's hard to say, right? We got to know, spend enough time with your trees to know kind of how they're going to react in the event of you doing severe work to them, right?
So what would you do for aftercare if you did something real drastic, like you did the prune and then you transplanted? What kind of aftercare? What would you do?
Sure, many options, right? Of course, starting with moving it somewhere shady, right?
For how long?
We've cut open all these spots that have been shaded out. We're going to thin it out, and you're going to be exposing spots that have never seen the sun its whole life, right? You can throw it in some shady area for a couple months, even the rest of the year. Once you start seeing growth extensions again, you know you're probably good to set it out in the sun. And even then, you don't want to just go directly into the hottest part of your garden, right? Ease it into it where you can.
How do you feel about misting? Like, do you think that helps?
I think it's fine.
You think it actually helps? Though?
Yeah. Think about, like, if you have a shohin tree, this is probably getting misted every time you water. And generally, those are fine, right? Yeah. But if you have, misting is great. Best to do, like, in the evening to cool things down, though, right? Mm-hmm. When things get real hot throughout the day,
they're burning them.
Yeah, and you know the tree's tired, the tree's stressed. So it's if you can mist it to give it a break from the heat is very good. If it's wet all day, you know you can run into issues. Whether it's likely fungal is one of the things, right? Yeah. Depending on the species, junipers are very tolerant to these things, though, right? So. Don't get too worried if you just happen to, I sprayed the bottom branch, right? Don't stress. They're tough trees.
What about fertilizing after a transplant?
Sure, after repotting, give it a rest. Typically we are repotting at a time where, in the spring, right? I've done lots of repots in the summer, Lord knows. But give it a rest. If you are repotting at a weird time, even spring too, give it like 2 weeks to 3 weeks, let the roots start moving again. If you were to lift this up right now, and from what I've seen on other trees while I've been here, just the tips are starting to move. You'll see the nice white little tips of things that are starting to move. And that's telling you the tree is active, it's starting to wake up from its dormancy, right? And so when you go repot, you've cut those tips, now it needs to form new ones, so until those new ones start coming out again, you got to hold off, and you're looking maybe 2 or 3 weeks before it kind of really establishes itself. And then you start light, right? Start a little lighter than what you normally do. And fertilization, don't make it complicated. If you're using some brand name thing, just whatever it says is low dose, just start with that. And work your way up until you're getting the kind of growth that you want, right?
Do you have a preference on which type of tree, juniper, you like working on more, like personally, like Shimpaku versus like a Fujikawa, for instance?
Sure. So the Shimpaku is just kind of the catch-all term for junipers in Japan, right? So the Fujikawa foliage versus something like this, which was kind of like kishu, right? Well, this is very much so. I would say I prefer the nicer, finer variety, right? Something like this is very fluffy, and you can have a lot of fun with these where, you can leave these pads with nice rise in them to kind of form all the pads versus the Itaga. You can get things very clean. With these two, over time, if you cultivate them well, you're always pruning these or thinning these out nice. you know, you can pinch the bottoms of these, you can get very clean lines, no problem. But if I had to say preferentially, yeah, something like Itogawa is very fun, because you can just get very satisfying lines with those on your pads. Yeah, and Kishu also, I don't know if Kishu really likes where we're at in Osaka so much. But,
It's the opposite here, we have a problem growing with
yeah,
Itogawa.
so I hear.
Kishu grow way better.
Which is, yeah, these are, I'm starting to like these more and more. So, cutting, I've made lots of cuts up here to open up the apex and find room for everything, right? We have this as our leader. We can grow things off the leader instead of trying to rush and grow things off of what are, you know, glorified branches trying to be up there with the leader, right? So we can make room for these things, right?
So you're getting that direction now, you're doing, you're moving it, everything starting to flow more to the left, the upper part.
Yeah, exactly. So just prioritizing what's going to be the leader here. I want maybe something like this little guy to be the leader, right? And then we can get a lot more detailed up here, right? Like I said, A with the fitting, B with, you know, exactly how the branch has got to be. But all I'm doing is, you're predicting what's going to feel right. What's the next move for this tree, right? I'm always wanting to have some kind of leader. Otherwise, we're going to end up in this situation again where we have lack of taper because we have multiple branches growing the same thickness. But if we have one dedicated leader, and we can cut back in the future. We can cut back to another one, wire another up into place, see what grows. You have time. But it's always good to have one guy you're really calling that like top pinnacle of your apex, and other things can grow around that, right? So, yeah, I mean, other than that, for me now, it would be go through this and get picky about, you know, stuff, spacing, branch cleanliness, really just go through. But that takes a long time of its own, right? And this is something I usually will do alongside and make sure everything's nice and clean, right? But, yeah, we're pretty much there, everybody. So. I know it's a little scraggly still, but this is a big tree to try to get through and talk through at the same time. I hope everybody kind of got some little nuggets out of it.
Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Should we padded that one or no?
So, yeah, let's repot.
Let's repot it.
Let's repot it.
Dead tomorrow.
No.
So this tree will be.
We do it together.
That's what you're not allowed. You got banned from our
I think he's an art team.
You see?
Hey, that's good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a bit.
Yeah, I've been thinking, hey, what if, you know, if I can also just do comedy here, then
You'd have a great time, believe me.
yeah.
I really love it.
There was so.
Because most people will cut off the top, right? Most of the people will cut off in the building. That's why.
There's
awesome.
many ways to approach it. We could, you know, we could have done an insane, risky bend and snot out of it.
Okay, I just want to say a few words. Sure. So first of all, Michael, it's fantastic having you here.
Yeah, we enjoy it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For next year right now, or how does that work? How do we make this into anything?
I'll be pretty flexible, of course. I'm not far. So I did Tennessee in December, and I was 24 hours of flying with layovers and junk. This was Yeah, 9 hours from Osaka to Tokyo, one single flight. I slept like a rock my first week here. I want to come here as much as possible.
All right.
because
We want you as much as
Yeah,
possible.
right,
it's
you
really
want
hard.
it.
You know how to contact me. We'll figure it out.
That's great.
This has honestly been my best bonsai meeting I've ever been to.
Whoa. Okay. Yeah.
Well,
You're gonna hurt Darren.
This is the most people I presented for too.
yeah, me too, me too.
Now, as a token of appreciation, Matthew will throw a party.
So I just want to
Come on
say,
over.
it's the membership dues that make this possible. We want to continue to bring this these great meetings to you guys also. If you haven't signed up to be a member for 2026, please make sure that happens. Our treasurer Ian's at the back signing people up in cash, or you can do that online on our website. Yeah, and then there is still a ticket available for tomorrow night's 5-person session with Michael McTeague on FraserValleyBonsai.com. So if you want to be in a very small setting with the master, just bring your tree like that, and you'll get some great advice.
With your own tree, we'll tune it up.
Some wonderful cuttings.
Yeah, some cuttings from the tree here if you like. Yeah, so please help tidy up the room so we can get it on time. Thanks, everyone.
Do something about it.
When did you find out?
Yeah.